Welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls, and today we're going to be focusing on the rookie conversation. But I have 2 points of contention that I want to bring up before we do this, completely off topic. The first one is, how the hell do we say his name? Is it Kyousuke or is it Kyousuke? Because the thing that blew my mind during IEM Cologne was how there were like a bunch of fans, because I think he says Kyousuke, and then there were all these fans online going, well, he's saying his name wrong. And then someone was like, but that's how he says his name, and it doesn't matter that you've chosen it. If you've said it wrong, you will be lectured. So can we just decide right now, how are we referring to this player moving forward?
Okay. Here's my problem with this topic. To very briefly summarize, there isn't, unfortunately, like a one standard that makes perfect sense that you can apply, which is really irritating because I do like it OCD style to be where there's like a logic to how you're going to do it. Like, first of all, in Counter-Strike, we have no standard. I'll give you an example. Everyone else goes, why don't you say Zaiwu? I say Ziwu because that is actually the French way you say it. That's where I first heard the name in all like French interviews in the French scene. But that is hypocritical because, for example, Zipex apparently is how he wanted his name said, and I've said Zipnix the whole time because of Anders. So I've already failed that standard. Then on this one, same thing. As pointed out, yes, obviously a young like teenage Russian kid who doesn't say like Kyousuke or whatever the fuck they want you to say from Japan. He doesn't even know that, Yumi. I'm sorry, mate. But he does get to pick his own name to some degree. But here's why that also doesn't work. Because in Korea, they don't actually have the letter F. That's not a sound they have in their alphabet. So, for example, Faker, the most famous player probably ever in esports history, literally would call himself Paker. And I'm not calling him Paker. So that's all a roundabout way to say, I'm just going to check notes, just do whatever I want anyways. So since I was saying Kyousuke first, I'm going to do that. But unfortunately, because people did say Kyousuke, which sounds a bit better, every now and then I accidentally fuck up and say that. So just keep track of it. I'll probably do both. There you go. Does that solve it for you? Is that better?
It's one of those, right? Where you're like, whatever feels right in the flow of this sentence, I'm just going to say, and I'm not really bothered. I get there's this whole history around Kyousuke, but realistically, to get this annoyed over a Russian kid's pronunciation of a Japanese word, I'm not going to lie, I've been a bit insensitive in my pronunciations over the last sort of week since everyone got so mad about this. But no, I'm going to try to say Kyousuke. I'm also going to say Kyousuke. I'm going to say probably something else at some point. So it's one of those things I'm not too bothered by.
So this is why I like UK players. We just do stuff like call ourselves Alex. There you go. Can't go wrong with that. I think we've nailed it.
You have to. I'm gonna reveal his little secret. But when we were at PGL Astana, when there was all the gossip about Falcons picking up Kyousuke, Maui was running around the green room telling us how to say it correctly. But Maui does this thing sometimes where when he picks up on a certain word or a phrase, he'll just keep repeating it because he knows it starts to like drive people insane and get stuck in their head. And I think for like 3 nights, I just had Maui in my head going Kyousuke, Kyousuke, Kyousuke. So you should get him to do it because his pronunciation is pretty impressive. But there you go. I just love the fact that we have so little to do with our lives that getting super triggered online about how someone pronounces their own name.
People actually going like to war like the Crusades over this shit. I know it's too much. Come on, mate. Come on.
Okay, so then my second thing that we just need to sort out is, are we calling zweih a rookie? Is that, are we putting him, because he was a tier 2 player, but is it fair to put him in the rookie conversation? The problem you have is
this has actually always been an issue for me, is when people say rookie, some people are just being like, not even literal, they're just being like too label orientated, and they're thinking things like, do you qualify for rookie of the year or something like that, which is like, I don't know about that shit. I mean, rookie colloquially to me, you're inexperienced, you haven't played much at this level. So on that level, put it this way, Namiga mainly played online tournaments. If I had to guess, aside from the major, I'd be surprised if this guy had played more than like 2 or 3 real lands. Like maybe he was at like a Pro League game last or something. They made it. So to me, I think colloquially he is still a rookie. But if you make the reason why it's tricky is everyone does say that thing where they all claim that like Katowice was Doc's first real event. He technically wasn't one of those bet boom lands at the end of 2023 that had like Virtus Pro and Cloud9. So I don't know. Again, it's another one of those ones where it doesn't seem like there's a hard and fast standard. So to me, he's a rookie. But I don't know. What is the logic? Do you know KingT? Is he supposed to be like considered experienced? What do you think?
I would experience certainly not. And this is something I've had very petty, bickering sort of debates with.
Welcome to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, every Monday I have a podcast I do with one very finicky, detail-oriented guy who always wants to bicker every point down to the bone. And this is one of the things we've gone back and forth on. the classic debate we had was originally with NPL. It's like, do we count that weird sort of period he had on NAVI, like where he's basically brought in, shunned, then ditched? I was like, does that count as your big breakthrough into tier 1? Is that your real rookie season? But for this guy, zweih, he's on Namiga, he plays basically nothing, and now he's on Spirit. I don't see how we can call him anything else. There's no extensive history of even tier 1 LAN qualifier type events. He's not playing a bunch of stage 1s even. Like, he's not been at the forefront of the tier 2 scene, that tier 1.5 sort of threshold. He's just been in tier 2, and like, that's great. He might pop up at a major here and there where the format is very open and there's a chance you can have that little cheeky run, as he did. But overall, this is a rookie through and through. There's, by every definition, surely, just experience, age, tenure. There's nothing he has that, for me, makes him not a rookie.
Okay, so we decide he is a rookie. If you don't agree with us, you can get very upset and triggered over on Reddit. We won't be there. We're not allowed there. And you can have fun with that conversation. I figure, seeing as we're doing a focus on the rookies that we got to see now in like sort of the second part of the year, IEM Cologne was their first showcase. Let's start with the one that lifted the trophy, zweih. I mean, KingT, you follow a lot of tier 2. So you've seen a lot of these players. Were you surprised with Spirit picking up this particular player? Was his stocks rising coming into the second half of the season?
Yeah, obviously the major run for him was a big breakthrough. Like, that was huge. I mean, he'd been sort of a player you had to have a really sharp eye for to have picked up on earlier than that, because the numbers weren't that flashy. Namiga were a team with a very specific sort of almost janky playstyle at times. I mean, Lear's received a lot of credit for how he calls that team, but overall, it didn't really seem like he was, coming out as a star. This is going to be the next great guy. He was playing roles. He was playing roles fairly well, and those with an astute eye were able to pick up on certain things that were like, oh, that was a really solid decision. Here, he pre-aimed all the right angles. He processed this very well. It was a very finicky sort of very detail-specific sort of scouting you had to do to really get zweih on your radar prior to that sort of major run, where leading up to it in the couple months prior, he had great numbers. Then at the major, we saw him have all these highlights, these big multi-kills, really coming in late, sweeping teams away, occasionally even having some slightly more aggressive lurk plays to just start things off. And that was really impressive. We thought, wow, for a kid this age to have that sort of confidence, to be assertive, take space, take duels, we love it. And there was some overlap with the roles with magixx. That's why the rumors started circulating. A lot of people were talking about it. As soon as we start hearing that Team Spirit are considering it, obviously that gets ratcheted up to 1,000 because everyone's like, yes, he's perfect. We love him for the roles. We'll get into how that was applied in practice, I think, in a second. But as far as Spirit making that move, it did reach a fever pitch where it felt inevitable and borderline obvious that this was coming in. So depends on how far back you go in terms of how much credit you get for predicting this. But by the time the major was over, it was the number one pick, I think, for a magixx replacement. It was this specific kid.
Does it not interest you, though? Because I sometimes look at these teams with academy teams that they're paying for, and I'm always surprised when they don't go to the academy. Just because, I mean, the concept of an academy team is you find this young talent, you give them space to grow, and the idea is that you're pushing them up into the main roster. But we saw this with NIP. That just doesn't happen anymore. You go shopping elsewhere. Team Spirit sold their best academy player, and I think my understanding is that he wanted to go, so fair enough. But they didn't go and look at the Spirit Academy, which I've been told is really good, KingT. Like, a lot of people have said there's some good talent there. Were you surprised, I suppose, that they didn't go that route and look what they had sitting on the shelf at home?
I thought there was an opportunity for Spirit to shake things up a bit in terms of trying to take that risk on Kyousuke. Bring him up into the tier 1 team, maybe adjust some of the ways the other players play around Donk. They've got a very specific style. They don't like a lot of other players breaking the mold, taking risks. It's very steady in the way they approach rounds. But there were still moments where I was specifically getting frustrated about this, where people said that's impossible. He could never do anything that Zontix does, magixx does. And you go through demos like, this is a hard entry path. This is a mid-swing where Zontix is also going through that smoke with Donk. If you could replace that player with a guy who I know can actually aim at the head, why wouldn't I? That would be, for me, an obvious sort of thing to try. But Spirit are very clearly dug into their way. Like Hallie, probably some of the other analysts and coaches surrounding him have all bought into this idea that their style in their main team is their style. And at times, their academy side played a very similar one. So they just couldn't see that sort of replacement making sense. Where they could have made a change is potentially bringing in a guy like Mokujin, probably to just try out, see if he can play the roles that magixx was playing, maybe bring a little bit extra sharpness. He's been pretty good in that academy team. He plays, again, not quite the exact same positions. I think at times he might overlap with Zontix a bit more, but I'd take that risk as well. They didn't seem very interested in that. I don't think they believe in their academy players just yet. I think they still believe in their minds they're still a bit raw, despite all the LAN wins, despite all the Tier 2 online cup wins. They're just not convinced by what they have. And that's why they allowed Kyousuke to be bought by someone else, just let him leave. He wanted to play Tier 1. They said, all right, not with us, though. And so they got the King's ransom for him. I would have liked to have seen a Mokujin at least considered. There didn't seem to even be much of a rumour for it. There was a point where they were considering 4 players. We heard that rumour. He was on the list. Clearly, they're just not happy with what they have. They've been in this academy forever and yet still not ready. So that's their call, I guess. But I would have liked to have seen that.
I've got a couple of angles on this. First of all, one thing that was actually quite bizarre is if you ever read the back and forth through like both insiders and like comments and interviews about this specific transfer, there was a weird thing where they mentioned that zweih himself, before he joined Amiga, apparently had tried to join Spirit Academy. Like he'd actually like openly asked them, like, can I join or something? So first of all, that if you are Spirit, that sort of signals like we could probably get this guy if we want, because then he's basically actually inquired to join you. And then also, sadly, this is where even having academy players, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to put this out there, the real reason why the NAVIs and the Mouse of the world sign their academy players isn't because they think their academy player is the best player for that role. It's because he's really cheap and they don't have to do a buyout, and they just, it's actually, the joke is actually, the idea he could be a Don Coromonisi, almost certainly won't be, is just like a way of conning your fans that they're not actually signing a big name player that you want him to sign. Remember, which is it? Are you supposed to be like the Manchester City of your game, or are you actually like a development team? Like none of these other squads have figured it out. So the other problem I also think is, even if you have the guy in your academy, you get to watch him every day and you get to watch what he does. The problem is, zweih was at the major that you were at. You could see him. The problem is in your brain, a game at the major, and he did actually frag really well at that major, that just in your brain counts for so much more than any Tier 2 online game. So unfortunately, I actually think in that sense, it's just easier to look like the shiny new thing when it's there online. Like, oh, wait, he's already at majors, we can just get him here. And I do think he looked pretty good. I agree with you, look, we could get in it if you want, but I also think the craziest thing is it also looked like it should be a pretty easy fit, but then it looks like they've gone out their way not to make that easy, and they've done some bizarre changes with some of his spots at Seren. So he actually doesn't look like he's played that well so far. And then lastly, the problem I also have, it is hard to complain. I always say this because at the end of the day, if we're all going to criticize Falcons for just wasting endless money, where they're seemingly Falcons' logic goes, we don't care how much the real life cost and business aspect is. We're just trying to win in the server. And you can laugh as much as you want, but one day they're probably going to do that. And secondly, it certainly looks like in general, it's eventually going to work. Like the Kyousuke guy looks fucking awesome. The problem then is, though, if you're going to critique them essentially for not running as more responsible business, well, the problem is Spirit's doing amazing business. Like, as far as I know, they've only ever done one crazy buyout, which was Shiro all the way back at the end of 2023. By the way, that now looks inspired. That was like the best buyout you probably ever do for that price point. It was guaranteed even. He was already a bona fide HLTV top 10 player, and he would just slot straight in the team. Meanwhile, then you haven't sold Donk, or you had to lose him. You probably, by the way, here's the angle no one ever asked him about. I doubt you even pay him a crazy salary. I'll bet he's done something very fucking reasonable since this is his first contract. And then secondly, you've now sold another player for millions. The joke is you're now actually on the plus minus, probably up in terms of transfers. Like, you sold Kyousuke for probably 500k more than you bought fucking Shiro. So along the route, that is great business. And if at the same time you can still win Cologne and win the major, that is about the best business you could ever do. The problem is, it's not sexy, is it? What would be sexy is you know how Vitality wins all the time now? Well, we're bringing out Kyousuke like a fucking anime and leveling up, and we're just going to do like a super team versus yours. Yeah, that's fucking hype as well. The problem is not great business. So again, we've got to figure out how we graded these teams. Do we care about business? Do we only care about the in-game product, you know?
I mean, I think anyone watching is going to say they only care about the in-game product. I like the business. I do like the business conversation about it, but we'll focus on the in-game.
That's why I never really understood the whole thing of look, I get laughing at Falcons because they failed with the players that they signed and they didn't make it. That's a classic, laughing at someone falling over and tripping over and fucking up. What I don't get is the thing of they wasted all that money. Why do you care what some Saudi guy did with all this? Yes, guess what? That same guy's probably going to buy jet skis, fucking get some girl from your school who's a model to come visit him in Dubai. You know what I mean? money. What are you talking about? We're just wasting money. Who gives a fuck what he's wasting the money on, mate? He's wasting money to put a better player in a CS team. Oh, I'll definitely watch it. Give me a break.
It's also the wasting money thing is interesting. I'm going to do a terrible job and butcher this, but someone tried to explain this to me once, which was the concept of when you were a student and you were running out of money at the end of the month, like a can of Coca-Cola or like a can of Red Bull is mad expensive, right? Like the thought of buying that at the end of the month is insane. And then as you like get your first job and you're in a more stable place, suddenly like you don't even think about the cost of it. You just go, oh, I want that can of Coke or that Red Bull, right? And as life goes on, certain things become less of that's expensive and more something you can afford. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, there is a group of individuals, and some of them are living in Saudi, where buying a Lamborghini is like buying a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola. And if you had to compare, so they're not wasting money. They just think that they're buying another bottle of Coca-Cola. I mean, I'm sure at some point they'll look at the business thing, but that is the point for them. It's just, they buy lions and put them in Ferraris. Like they don't really care if NiKo's winning or not. Yeah. Anyway, let's focus in on what we actually saw in the server though. Spirit wins, they win Cologne, but obviously you brought it up there, the role changes. It looked like a perfect fit. Then they shake things up. I mean, what do you think the strategy was there, KingT? Did you like what you saw? I mean, they did win the trophy in the end, so I suppose maybe it was working.
Honestly, I came out of that thinking you could have done the same thing with magixx. The exact same thing.
That's the worst part of it.
Especially in the groups where he was kind of awful. Like he just looked nervous, unsure of himself. And then the numbers got going as he went through the playoffs. In the grand final, he's like 1.04 or 1.03 rated. And you're like, oh, yeah, fine for his roles. But even then, I'm watching rounds where he's just, this is an ancient round specifically, he's holding the ramp push from the CTs, just waiting on the T side with his AK. And Broland, of all people, just swings him, fights him, and kills him. It's a heads-up fight. There's nothing else to it. This is mechanics on display. He doesn't even hit the shots. At that point, I might as well have had magixx on the server entirely, like directly. Playstyle for playstyle, accuracy for accuracy. Nothing's really changed. So it seems they have brought him in, and for now, he's just being hammered into the exact magixx roles. There seems to be very little compromise. He's not being given any sort of freedom, never being let off the leash. The only person with that sort of autonomy on the team currently still remains Donk, pretty much, even though Shiro probably has it, just doesn't like to take it very often. This is a Spirit who played the exact same way that they usually play. It just, one of the faces and hair colors changed, I guess, in the pictures. Aside from that, you could have been watching them winning Katowice, pretty much.
I actually think low-key, that might be the weirdest fucking narrative that I've ever seen, because you've joined a giant team. They weren't until recently the major champions. You've joined this team. You've even replaced like a beloved player. They go and win this massive event when no one wins events when Vitality's here. But because you didn't beat Vitality, there's even a lot of really bizarre things about this event. Like you only won on something mental, like 3 maps or something in the map pool. There's all sorts of like weird angles. You avoided all the teams because Falcons bombed, etc. Like you just end up with all these weird angles where at the end, I know what you mean. I actually have a totally neutral take on them signing him. Like, I don't think it was bad, because I don't know, like, magixx could have played worse, I guess. But I also don't know that zweih played that much better. Like, look, he does it just reminds us to have better aim, but that's about it. And so I kind of feel like it's a push, which feels like cheating because it is one of the biggest events of the year. But to me, it also reminds me of when Spirit won the major and magixx had the life game, and then we all had to go like, well, they're now going to pretend that's their roster for now, but that roster doesn't exist. That was just a one-off. So I don't know. I know what you mean. Maybe they could have even won it with magixx. I thought that when they finished the tournament, I was thinking like, bro, is this guy not even going to have like a big signature round or something? Like, give me something, to pin the idea of like, hey, the upgrade's why we won. I don't even know that is why they won, to be fair. I feel like they could have won this tournament with magixx as well, especially because it is still just dog shooting everyone in the head. That's why they win. Like, just unfortunately, it sounds reductive, but that's why I liked that B-Tram's graphic he did where he showed that like which superstar players, and this was from all like CSGO history, which superstar players can underperform and their team still wins. And the joke is, this is why it was really effective. Even the most crazy abusive ones of all time, like NiKo in that Bad Mouse Sports, or like early Simple in NAVI where you had like the old veterans there, even they could like win the game, 15, 25% of the time if they did badly. Dogs was 0. If he was under a 1.0 rating, he had never won ever. So, like, unfortunately, the team is still just dog at the moment. Like, like the rest of it's all well and good. We can have debates, but like at the end of the day, the reason they won is because Donk had inhuman numbers again. That's it, right?
I mean, that's the issue though, is because we all said at the sort of towards the end of the first season here was like Spirit needs to change something because they can't be solely reliant on Donk. And then this was meant to be that change. And now you've kind of just stuck someone in and you're just going to keep doing the same thing. So I'm presuming similar results down the line, but we're going to move on, chat about a couple of other rookies now. His name keeps coming up, so we have to bring him up. The Kyousuke Wonder Child. He had a great tournament. Falcons bombs. I mean, that to me was it a surprise? I'm starting to think that's kind of the Falcons' expectation. But he started off impressive because obviously there was so much talk around him. He's the most, I think it's the most expensive transfer since Manassi. Like that was the rumors and whatever.
It might be the most expensive transfer ever. Like I think people forget this. We haven't had a lot of big name players. That might be the most ever. Like what, 2 million or something? That sounds like a lot. 2 million
for like.
And
so there was a lot of talk of like, well, you don't know what he's going to do on a stage. You don't know what he's going to do against tier 1 opposition. I mean, I think he held his own. He looked really good. He was just let down by his teammates.
Yeah, the opening comparison, obviously, for all of us, we're talking about a Spirit Academy, hyper-mobile, hyper-aggressive, hyper-skilled rifler. Next Donk is the easiest label to smack on him. I did it. I mean, I'm not going to pretend otherwise, not going to take some high ground. I took the clicks. And basically, this event kind of proved us all right. There was a small number of people who were really desperate for this to utterly fail.
Yeah.
And some people who had valid concerns. I think even I shared some of their concerns where I'm thinking about just role-wise, if he's asked to do certain things on mostly the defensive end, especially, where it's like, I want you to sit still, hold this line. When I watch his demos, he seems incapable of sitting still. But these were just little finicky details. As far as the mechanics, I was pretty assured. I thought he'd come out here and hit headshots. In reality, he ended up being pretty much dead on the comparison of next Donk. I looked up Donk's first sort of lands with Spirit. Number for number, it's almost the same thing. It's 0.95 KPR, a 1.3 something rating, ridiculous impact. Every single stat lines up. And even the things that Donk brings to the table for Spirit that are supposed to be one-off in terms of sort of the half-buy impact, the hero rifle impact, just having a deagle. Like when Donk faces a full buy with a deagle, he has 100 ADR. That's
insane, isn't it?
Kyousuke had those sorts of moments too. Like he was able to bring that to the table. So the comparison has so far yet to be disproven, shattered. The illusion is still very well alive. He is the next Donk and he has been outstanding. It's a shame, as we ever so often, every now and then we see this sort of happen with this NiKo Manassi duo. The floor can just fall underneath them and their level disappears. It's a bit puzzling as to why. This event, you could maybe blame some of the CT sort of setups not being right, NiKo's roles not kind of suiting him, maybe some discomfort around playing next to this kid, trying to accommodate him. But realistically, those numbers are inexcusable no matter the role. So frustrating that they go out in this fashion. We don't get to see him challenging bigger names, playing in the biggest stage, the Cathedral of Counter-Strike. We'd have loved to see him baptized there. But instead, it's straight home in, slightly more typical Falcons fashion at this point. It's getting alarmingly consistent. But they are certainly happy with who they've signed. He is the monster that was promised. Let's put it that way.
It always makes me think the part that people really take for granted last year at Katowice wasn't just that Donk was insane. It's that Team Spirit also played really well and won the whole event. That was the craziest part because it meant you didn't just have a rookie like break on the scene. His team was then also like the best team at that one event. That didn't happen here, obviously. But the thing that was quite similar for me is like the most part. What's funny is if I was a Falcons fan, I would still sort of take like a moral victory from this result, which is the Kyousuke guy had enormous pressure on him. Like as you say, a lot of people wanted him to fail or wanted this to be like a silly move so the millions could have backlash onto the Saudis and they looked stupid again. Well, here's the problem. Even though people still do the joke like you need one more start, but that star looks fucking good though, doesn't he? You have to give him props for buying that player. Remember, sight unseen at lands, so he is fucking pretty good. Like, because that's about the best rookie performance as like a debut that I've seen. By the way, except for Donk. And that's including rookies that went to teams that were really good and didn't come almost like last place. Like, I think it's nuts how well he played, mate. And he played that well without the stars on his team play well. By the way, there's another thing, which, by the way, also does in some way validate the fact that Kyousuke himself asked to go to this team over stay in a Spirit team where he knew some of the players, has played with them, and they all speak Russian. Like, that actually shows me this guy maybe also has like a baller mindset. Like, another thing people were hating on with, they were trying to find any angle. They were like, he vapes too much. So he's going to be all tired when he can't vape. Like, mate, look, that he was shooting shooting everyone in the fucking head to me. Didn't seem like he had the issues there with the vape, did he? Look at, the only thing he was smoking was all of y'all, wasn't he? And then lastly, I'll just put this out there. This is one of the things I find so bizarre, because who are some of the main people criticising Falcons? Kassad, Yanko, Homie. The fucking elephant in the room is killing me on this one. You yourselves don't give credit to the IGLs of G2 when NiKo and Monty played there, because they're superstar players who call their own number. This is all your own terminology, boys. They call their number and they make the players. And we all know NiKo makes the mid-round call and Monty chooses where he goes and ops everyone. Right, okay, now put them in a different team where presumably they have the same leeway, superstar, green light, as we say in basketball. You're allowed to shoot whenever you want. You're allowed to break the system whenever you want. When you then play like shit and fuck up, I'm supposed to go, hey, don't blame them who have all this crazy autonomy as star players. Look at the coach behind them who, by our own logic, we're all saying, your genius is you ignore what he says when it's the right move. Well, which is it? Don't they ever get to carry the can? This is one thing I don't understand. People are acting like Zonic has a fucking joystick behind him and the remote control. Like, he just tells them the setup from the fucking scrims. And my issue is this. When they looked fucking awesome coming out the gate and we're in all those finals and semis, like, did anyone give them props then? No, you all just went, wow, look how good these players are. They can just play, plug and play, you can just drop them in there. Well, then tell them to go do it now then. I still don't get. Like, to me, if you're going to give blame out, you have to, like, apportion it appropriately, but everyone gets some. Like, the joke in this case is Kyousuke gets the least of anyone on that team, actually. He actually played about as good as he can for a team that looked like a fucking train wreck. But I don't get it myself, because, by the way, I don't disagree with them. If you went and watched a demo, yeah, they're not going to have, like, insane protocols and look like they're following, like, strats and conditioning. Because as far as I can tell, they've got all superstar players. That the whole gimmick is you don't do that. You let the guy have the freedom to do what he wants to do. So I feel like people are still caught again on what standard we're judging Falcons by here. Like, they're not trying to be a fucking super strategical team as far as I can tell. It looks like they are a team where it is the vibe of sort of like you let the players play and you let the stars make their players. So if we're doing that, I think you also have to blame the stars. Like, certainly I would blame some of the setup aspects, but I would also blame those players for playing like shit. Like, guess what? Monty played actually fucking pretty bad in 2 tournaments in a row now. NiKo had like a bad last game, which always looks the worst. So I think these guys also have to carry the can a bit. Can't just be Sonic and Falcons, surely.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to simplify this in such a way that's probably a little bit unfair, but it does kind of feed into what you were saying there, right? So Donk comes in on his debut, and he's just insane, and we can all agree that he is surrounded by pieces that are far inferior to what Kyousuke gets. Kyousuke comes in, and he is just incredible, but the pieces around him are so rubbish that they don't even make the playoffs in this particular tournament. I use the word rubbish. That's quite a way to describe it.
They were crap, yeah.
So what the hell is going on? Because I mean, I ask this every time after every tournament, and we can never answer. But what the hell is going on at Falcons? I mean, you've now got this player doing incredible things. He's popping off in Cologne, and everyone else is kind of just stagnating. Is it a situation of maybe the star players have too much autonomy, and someone needs to kind of bash their heads together and say, right now it's time to listen because whatever you're doing is not working? Is it maybe there is going to be another piece? I'm presuming we made the joke. I know ESL even did a skit. I guarantee there's another piece coming. It's just like the Falcons way. But how many pieces until the pieces start working, which is the same thing I say every episode we do something about Falcons.
Yeah, it should be. Oh, I mean, we're gonna probably say one more, and then eventually that's going to happen, and then that wasn't enough. And realistically, it's one of those things where we talk about NiKo's teams, and sometimes we talk about, just grab by the scruff of the neck if you're the coach. If this isn't working, you should assert your will. If that worked, someone would have actually managed to do it by now. He's been around for literally forever, at least 10 years of competitive play where he has not been the most manageable of star players. All of a sudden, you're not going to change that. And
no, I'd even ask someone this question. I think it's a pretty valid one. NiKo's played a very long time, KingT, in some of the best teams in the world. When were any of them ever famous for being tactical teams? As far as I can tell, they're not. As far as I can tell, isn't every team like a NiKo team where it's like NiKo does what the fuck he wants, makes all his genius plays and reads, and then people do something, question mark, win the game? Like, that's one of the weirdest things about this topic to me.
It is strange, and especially with him and his style is able to, drag teams out of the mud. I mean, we've seen him take, some of those G2 rosters,
for sure,
one of which made a major final, had absolutely no right being there. And it's almost entirely off the back of his intuition, his feel, his playmaking, and also his just raw fragging, everything coming together to win big matches time and time again. But when you combine him with other star players, an IGL who might have some thoughts, things tend to break down a little too often. The tank gets stuck in the mud. And so we have to consider, realistically, we don't want to say it. It's not a popular take to have. Maybe Falcons' next move involves the removal of NiKo. Like, I've got an IGL who has had good teams and
never
have been,
gonna happen.
relatively
Just
successful.
saying.
I know it's never going to happen.
It isn't. I know what he means. Put it this
move.
way, I was even thinking this myself, which is at this event, they themselves communicated in the interviews, KingT, the same thing. Like, we're changing roles to accommodate Kyousuke. I want to just go, but why? If you're changing roles, it better never be NiKo or Molodoy. Or why did you buy them? Surely you bought them to be the player they are, and then you're building a team around them. That's why the weirdest thing about this, by the way, it's actually the thing I gave them props for in terms of what's bold about the move is, as far as I can tell, NiKo, Kyousuke, and TROLLS, either you cannot all three play the roles they want, or you're going to literally reinvent Counter-Strike as some super offensive game where the team side is the equivalent in American football of having some insane offensive spread that no one's ever seen. Maybe you can do that. Maybe that's what you envisioned, and that's exciting. It doesn't seem like it is. Seems like actually you've told TROLLS your job is now literally bottom frag forever until we kick you. And actually even NiKo apparently has to make some space for people. That's what I don't get is that almost implies you don't think NiKo was enough, which is again, what a bizarre perception of your players. Because to me, if you have NiKo and you were happy with him, he looked really fucking good, and you have Molodoy and you're happy with him, surely logically, the last thing you do isn't sign another superstar player and go, how do we make this work? You go, what's the last position I need? Fill that in. So if I'm kicking magixx, I would have been going for a move myself. I'd have been trying to get Perfecto or something like that. You know what I mean? I'd go for a move like that to stabilize the squad. So I feel like this is one area I don't have sympathy for Falcons is you made this problem. For some reason, you were super horny. It had to be this guy, but you already were super horny the year before. It had to be NiKo, and now they can't coexist. And by the way, that is the thing that kills me the most, KingT. Is that anyone who actually watched the POVs very quickly stopped that whole, he could never play with Donk. He is I agree with what the HLTV people said. He is way closer to NiKo's style of entry player than he is the Donk style. I think those two absolutely could have coexisted. I think that was just cope to not have to put him in their team and sell him for millions. So I don't know. I think this topic's a fucking nuts one because it's hard to even make any kind of fucking space for Falcons. They set this all up themselves. They actually actively paid millions to create this problem.
Yeah, they as you mentioned, a weird sort of setup. Yeah, they clearly haven't come out, started running the wing team.
Anyone you want in the world, pretty much. I know, I don't get it.
Yeah, and we all said this at the time. Surely Kyousuke comes in for TROLLS, right? That was one of our big contentions.
That sounds like a great move, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of us, did have that little sort of smarmy response. We called those people role cells, but there was an element of truth to it. Realistically, if you're going to bring in a raw, aggressive young player, you needed someone to be that stable, passive, anchor, extremity holding sort of support player. And that made more sense as magixx than it did TROLLS. But magixx was the scapegoat, essentially. He received all the ire. He was the worst numbers. I mean, now it
was also the last of the zombie infection of the bad Falcons, so you had to remove that entirely to feel like it was a new era,
True. Yeah, had to chop the rest of the leg off.
Exactly.
It was all for nothing. But now it just seems in a weird spot where TROLLS still occasionally runs hard entry routes, for Kixan sometimes, which boggles the mind considering how poor Kixan's been as an individual. And then on the CT side, he's just forced into spots he doesn't really like. If we could have found some sort of compromise where we are bringing in Kyousuke to play some of those sort of hard entry T roles, bring him back down to earth, be in this team, you're not God. He kind of was in Spirit Academy. He is the player who's going to drag that team to victories, bring them to, they played small lands, these bet boom lander lands, played against some legit teams, some just tier 2 grinders, and stomped them. A lot of the reason why they got through some of the tougher matchups is Kyousuke just goes out and hits 3 headshots. They no longer need him to be that kind of player. They needed him to provide impact in the ways, that are maybe less obvious. NiKo gets to be the superstar rifler, but hey, if we've got an entry fragger who can do what TROLLS does on his good days, every day, cooking with gas. I mean, when TROLLS is hitting all the shots, that Falcons side is unstoppable, no matter how poor the strat is, no matter how many other things can go wrong. When the entry fragger hits a triple, you're happy. So there's ways this could have been done, I think, in a more productive way in terms of the roles. But if you're looking for more moves, you do have to start addressing those sorts of problems, those concerns. Either it's Kyousuke has to come and play these different spots. He has to try and be more of a role player, essentially. Or we just have to say, NiKo, get up to speed. You're now a role player too. This all has to be kind of rebalanced around the very real problems they're facing now, which is just the playstyles don't quite mesh.
I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not too bothered about where the money comes from or the fact that they have lots of money. I love NiKo and Manasi. I love watching them play. I got really excited. Yeah. I get really excited with Kyousuke and what we saw. And I do, as a fan, love the idea of this team coming together, being phenomenal, and then becoming that juggernaut.
Sure.
Because then what happens is everyone else has to rise up. We saw it with Vitality. Everyone else is now improving. Yeah. That's sick for all of us. We get to watch.
Absolutely.
I mean, watching Maz beat Vitality was awesome. That was super fun. Okay, Vitality wasn't playing their best, but it's fun, right? That's what I want. I want the fun. So I want Falcons to do well. But I feel like what's going to happen is in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a rumor about another Falcons player, another player that they're going to pick up. And then we're going to spend the rest of the season being like, well, Falcons is getting another piece. And then next year we're back to having this conversation. So I hope that they can fix whatever it is that isn't working for the sake. I don't want NiKo's legacy to end on this of just shitting the bed with all these top players and then kind of fading off into obscurity. That would upset me a little bit.
Well, the worst thing is, if you think about, again, the way they're messaging. By the way, KingT, this is one of the reasons on these shows I always pick up on little details from interviews and keep reminding people. Did I tell people that they were just constantly, for years now, teasing behind the scenes and hinting publicly that they would make Hunter the IGL of G2? That was there the whole time, boys. It's just people ignored it because they didn't want to believe it was true, right? They've been going pretty hard the last year or so since they won that event in 2024 on the idea of one day, NiKo, but not yet. But one day, NiKo. And then Hooks even had the gall, the ultimate PR guy. He must secretly love NiKo. To be fair, he did give you all those trophies, mate. But because he did that interview, didn't he, where he goes, the day that NiKo becomes IGL, he will be the best IGL in the world. By the way, you're not helping him, by the way, of telling him that now. That's going to be in the back of his head. Yeah. But it does imply to me that this is why you can't really lose if you're NiKo, Sam, because, spoiler, if you play bad enough and the team's really shit, then it's actually now KingT who loses his job and now you're the IGL. I feel like he's just there for a long time now. I think, you know what I mean? I think also the difference is, I know it sounds mad because magixx used to be an enormous name player, but nowadays his stock isn't as high. I think you have, there's the other thing, you can kick TSS and people might go, oh, what the hell, it's like next team's playing well. They'll get over that really quick if you win the tournament. It's going to be hard to kick a player with a name like NiKo though. You know what I mean? I think it'd have to be pretty extreme before you can boot him. I mean, as you say, by the way, he's got loads of fans. He's got a crazy sort of parasocial fan base who really care about if he succeeds or not. I mean, the joke is this team was Project Win NiKo Major pretty much. That's why I think it's mad that look, I get that they're doing it because they want to offset the bad PR. But when you watch that ESL skit, it's bro, this is barely a joke though. You're all going yeah, there's no pressure, kid. You just have to win me. That is literally the narrative on him. You are aware. What makes it funny is that is true. I get, listen, I like the idea you can laugh at yourselves, but also, doesn't part of you catch yourself in the mirror and go, fuck, that actually is sort of what we're doing now like that. I think that's nuts. I even love the end of that skit because that's also true. I can't imagine that Zonic's just going, fucking hell, the major. He looks over and sees Kyousuke and he goes, it's all going to be better though, isn't it? Hey, how you doing, kid? Feel like dropping 30 bombs today? You better. But yeah, good job. I love it. What I love is they brought the soap opera angle unintentionally with the team, haven't they? They've all the crazy drama is almost as entertaining as fucking whether the game works or not.
Yeah, it's strange, man, and it's going to keep drawing attention, drawing eyes.
Well, the joke is we'll have 3 more episodes of this. Don't worry about that. We'll keep you updated on the transfers and Falcons.
Every three episodes, we throw a Falcons one in because it's just guaranteed to bring. Someone will rage about it, and everyone else will be in the comments. Also, though, I wanted to jump on the.
You like that one where during the major. Well, just to give you a free moment of what it would be like to be on Hot Take Point Mid, I told Kassan it was actually really good GMing to sign those players and he went mental. That was pretty good. If no one's ever seen that, if you like Hot Take Point Mid, there's an episode we did that's almost like as if she was the host of it because we actually triggered Kassan on exactly that topic to go mental. It was pretty good. It was
35 minutes of Kassan just losing his
went so
mind.
mental, did he? I know.
And I just didn't stop him either. I was like, we should get back on track, but this is just so fun. I've never seen him get that mad. But also the NiKo fan base, NiKo's one is interesting because every single player you speak to wants to play with NiKo at some point, or just talks about how great NiKo is. So I want to see NiKo win a major. There we go. I said it. Whether or not it'll happen with Falcons, we don't know. We got to move on though, because there are another two rookies that I think are the most interesting and my favorites. So I kept them till the end. And NAVI did the surprising thing of going to their academy, finding someone, bringing them up. So KingT, let's talk about this, because I was very worried about NAVI at the end of last season. And the conversation was always they didn't have that star player. What were they going to do? I wasn't as surprised as a lot of people were that JL was the one. Sorry, he wasn't on the chopping block. He chose to step down. But
whatever,
I'm trying to be nice.
It's what it is, isn't it? I know, whatever.
Was it a good replacement?
She's mutually decided to take the kids in the house and all that, and I'm just sleeping in a caravan now. Choice is all mutual, mate. Yeah, all right, whatever you say. Enjoy the caravan.
But I mean, what do you think of this player? What his time in the academy coming up? Was it the right move? What do you think?
For me, the NAVI discussion centered around, has the playstyle gotten stale? How many players can we change to really freshen things up and honestly bring some life out of people? Because again, vibe checks are, they're not real science, but you do feel something from them, right? When you look at a team's expressions, the way they're talking to each other, how dejected they can seem post-loss, you do get a certain inkling for what's going on behind the scenes, and NAVI didn't seem to be in a good place. Now, for me, one of the key things I talked about a lot of times when this topic came up, and it did incessantly, was I'd rather choose 2 players to cut. Maybe bring in a couple of the academy guys, really shake up the playstyle, because the academy does play a far more direct, smash mouth brand of CS. Like, there is some sort of, there's a bit of counterplay, there's some sort of intrigue.
For people who don't know, they're a very successful tier 2 team, right?
Oh, massively successful. More successful than Spirit Academy, but no next donk, so no one cares. But they did have a pretty cool style. Like, with the sort of Makazze is always, I compared him to sort of like a lead jab, except unfortunately, usually most jabs don't knock people out, but in Counter-Strike terms, they can. And then the counter, the next punch was always Krabany and Demon, typically as a duo, taking some other contact fight, looking for that rotation, like rotating players, looking for that empty bomb site. But Makazze was such an incredible like lead gambit that they were able to just do that on repeat. And I was a bit concerned when this signing was announced. Firstly, coming in for JL, the spots didn't seem immediately like they translated properly, like they seemed a bit odd. I was worried immediately out the gate they'd just be forcing him into JL roles to mostly be a bit supportive. And when I watched a Mirage game and I see him holding apps on B very passively, then just diving out the apps as an entry, I was like, oh Lord, they've squandered it. But not every map was the same. So thankfully, we still saw him take care of the things he's good at. He's playing mid on Ancient on both sides, just taking opening brawls. I like to see that. So they did force him into a few positions that I think are not perfect, but overall, they have found a good balance between still playing the NAVI style that they kind of like, and whilst also bringing in a guy who is raw, explosive, gets in the other team's face, and they have used it a bit. So I have liked the sort of balance they've struck between the 2 sides of NAVI versus NAVI Junior, despite only promoting 1 player.
I thought it was interesting that he said in an interview that he didn't think he was playing good enough CS in NAVI Junior. Something along those lines, where he was like, he feels like now with Blade, he's obviously like changed his style a bit and it's a lot better, which I thought was an interesting comment to make, because everyone has spoken so highly of how NAVI Junior has been playing. I really like this. It's the first time I watched this team against Spirit and actually thought they could win. I never normally they just look horrific against Spirit, and that's like their arch nemesis, and Spirit rolls them. They put up such a good fight. Like I don't know if it's that honeymoon new blood has made them feel good. I don't know if it's the right fit, Thorin, but I liked what I saw. I started believing in NAVI again.
I mean, I agree with KingT. I think when you have the flaws that they have and you sink to the level their team had sunk to, where it's not even about just like numbers and stats, because that was never what made them win last year. It's like they didn't look so cohesive. They didn't, by the way, they could never close a fucking game out for the last like 2 months, it felt like, and they would only basically beat like bad teams. If you put them against the top teams, it was a foregone conclusion they would lose. And so that's why they weren't a relevant team to win tournaments. I mean, the joke is people forget they were even at that last PGL Bro. People have just deleted that in their brains because they didn't attend the other ones. Like, they were at it, mate. They just lost to that Huxley Astralis really early on and did nothing in the tournament. Even though, by the way, for them, careful. I'll be careful how I say this, but that was in their part of the world to some degree. You know, you would have thought that would be quite a comfortable place to play, etc. and all that, but it wasn't. So the difference is this one looked way more like the real NAVI. Like I actually thought they were able to close games out. They were able to like do things in the tight matches where they showed some cohesion. But I agree with KingT. I would have changed 2 players because I think when you get to that point, it's never really that one player sucks so much. It's like really something's off about the whole dynamic. And actually, you probably, I think one of the issues, I'll use this concept if people understand it. One of the reasons why often if you injure a muscle, counterintuitively, it will actually turn out it's not that you specifically injured that muscle. It's that actually you had a different injury before that you didn't notice. And then other muscles have overcompensated to like make up for that essentially and like take the weight off it. And then you've strained that muscle. That's why it's actually so complicated famously if you ever injure your back, because sometimes it's not even from your back. It might be like your legs or something, or your thighs or something weird, or your posture or something. So I would say a similar concept here. But with all that said, not only was this also, it's why it's actually kind of a shame because zweih winning the event and then Kyousuke looking awesome probably made people forget this part. I actually thought this was a very good rookie debut as well. Like it looked like he came in, it looked like he did fit a lot of the spots and the roles right out the gate. He did exactly what you hoped he would pretty much do. He was one of the best players on the team. He provided firepower. And crucially, he wasn't some like crazy sore thumb that, like I say, ruined the whole like clutch dynamic of NAVI that they used to have. Actually, I was kind of impressed how many times they got into close scenarios. And I've been trained this year to go, well, NAVI doesn't win these anymore, do they? And they would just pull out the game. They would pull out the round. They would get into back in a good position. And also, if you want to just do the vibe check, the vibes looked way better in the team than they did before. Before, they also had, I think, the worst type of vibe, which isn't like they all hate this guy here and he's fucking up. No, they had the vibe of like no one knows what the problem is. And I always think that's the worst one, where everyone's like mildly frustrated because like we don't know what to fix. And I have, this is a point I made before that people missed maybe coming into the major. The reason I had NAVI with 0 chances to do anything at the major, I'm actually even surprised they made top 8, is because if you actually saw what they did in the first season of this year, Blade isn't some like idiot who really was just like, hey, you guys, because we were so good last year, you've all earned the chance to just fucking do the same thing and fit. No, he tried everything in the last season. He tried every map. They tried switching up like what they would pick, what they would beat. They were all over the place. They were doing everything they could. So I think also that last lineup was just completely out of gas. This looks, it might just be from the honeymoon period, yeah, but it already looks like a massive improvement to me. Like I'm way more interested to watch NAVI play now than I was before. I'm with you on that, yeah. Like you say, if they ever played Spirit, Mouse, even Falcons, by the way, I would instantly have it like, oh, the other team are going to fucking win. This is basically, the question is just how? How are they going to win it and how quickly? Are they even going to get the 3 maps? Now they also, that's another thing, they had more, that's what I liked, is that they had a bit of the NAVI grit back. It was harder to beat them at this tournament, I felt like.
I legit, against Spirits, I mean, I think NAVI losing Mirage was their mistake. And I actually think had that have not have happened, they would have beaten Spirit 2-0. Like that
they could
potential.
Have. Yeah, they certainly could have.
And
you
that
could
was,
argue they were the closest team to beating them, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't spoken about NAVI like that in forever. But I was surprised by the change because I know during the major, well, after the major, when they got knocked out, Alexi P did an interview where he was like, we know changes are coming, serious changes need to be made. I felt like the one player change wasn't the seriousness that Alexi B had kind of alluded to. And I do worry slightly. I think Makazze is really nice and I think he's fun and it's interesting to watch, but I don't know if this team has enough to go toe-to-toe with Vitality. And while they looked good against Spirits, I still worry that it may not be enough. Do you think it's enough, KingT, or does one more change need to happen?
It's hard because I've always had this problem with NAVI is understanding exactly where to place everything in terms of what matters for them winning. Because they have this great coach, this great IGL, and they often win games that they realistically shouldn't have. And they win without the presence of, historically, firepower. They've just not really been in desperate need of it. They've just been able to find their way to victory through other means. You know, through, if you watch an IMA demo when he's dropping a 1.5 rating on a map, he's shooting a lot of people in the side of the head. He's, you know, finding these really just nifty little trade kills. There's nothing super flashy about the overall playstyle. They do have the mechanical ability lying dormant on this team to go toe-to-toe with these sorts of rosters. I mean, at some point, I hope desperately, Bit is going to be as good as everything I see in his crosshair promises. Because I have never seen a player, firstly, adjust so well. Well, there's a couple now who are starting to match that sort of thing. Obviously, these really young stars. But his adjustments initially were great. And his bursting off the back of his first bullet literally unparalleled. I've never seen someone so precise. So he will, at some point, I think, mature into a borderline superstar level rifler. But until that point, they will still be trying to finagle and grind their way through these sorts of high firepower teams. So the question I really have is, when you're talking about Navi, which roster move am I making? Am I going to take another AWPer and stick him into the very static and uninteresting roles Wonderful has? Like, someone else got the right temperament to do that better? That isn't probably, maybe, I don't know, Shiro. Like, there's not really a whole lot of AWPers right now who are mega talented, who I want to see playing in that position. Is there really a chance that Navi give up on Bit? I mean, I don't think
wild
so.
to imagine, doesn't it?
No, given
but
the
I have
tenure,
heard,
given how well he's played.
Yeah, I have heard that there was all that talk at the beginning of last year that Bit desperately wants to go and play with Manassi.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I've seen it wasn't really a rumor. This was an amusing mistake where on a podcast, a friend of mine is just like, yeah, I mean, I've heard the vaguest conversation about Falcons getting Bit, but it's nothing real. Immediately picked up on by Russian Telegram.
Oh, love it.
Confirmed.
Love
Bit's
it.
going to Falcons.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
Ridiculous.
Right?
Love it.
That's absolutely ridiculous. It's not happening. I've heard similar things. If he forces his way out, then yeah, Navi are in with a very interesting, like, sort of set of problems, trying to replace him, figure out their playstyle. And it comes down to, at the end of the day, do you like Imma? If you think Navi should make another move, basically it's how much do you rate Imma? Because he's the one player where you're like, yeah, mechanically he's not that insane, he's not super young, and he's got a position with a decent amount of freedom to go make plays on the map. I think there's a chance you could find someone else to play his roles. I thought they'd have made that move by now if they believed that. If they believed they could find someone else to do it, they would have. And I think they could have even promoted like Crabany or someone.
Right.
Taken a risk on returning NPL from his loan. There's a number of things they could have, I think,
It does seem like, for whatever reason, Imma is Blade's boy. It's just, he just likes him for some reason.
He's fundamentally very sound, so I guess for Blade that just sort of works. So no, if you are, again, doubtful of Imma's ability, you do think there's another move coming. If you're not, you just kind of have to think, well, at some point the master plan will get it right again. There'll be another major. Hell, doesn't matter how you do it. By hook or by crook, by 49 win percentage or on the round wins rate, like whatever it is, they can make it happen at some point. Those are the two schools of thought. I think they'd have already replaced Imma if they agreed with me and thought, there's something we can do here.
I like Imma, so I'm glad that he's sticking around. All right, so we've kept this right till the end. I didn't tell either of you we were doing this. I've got 2 points to make. The first is all credit to our Lord and Savior Fallen, because obviously by taking a new role, he did this.
Okay.
Credit to him once
It's all on
again,
him,
just
right.
doing amazing things. Sure. And 2, who is winning Rookie of the Year and why is it Molodoy King?
Ooh. Well, Rookie of the Year is fun because, yeah, it was always, as we started the show off with that silly little what is a rookie sort of thing, like it can get a bit contentious to who counts. But I do want to start off with actually agreeing with you somewhat on the point that Fallen does deserve a lot of credit for this.
You can come back to every episode from here on out. Good job.
Well, the rate I'm coming on the show, it's anytime Falcons comes up, because last time we also did talk about Falcons. Just in a slightly different context. Of course, there's always something new with them. No, this was a weird one, because for me, when it's announced they're signing Molodoy, I'm like, great, I love Molodoy. But Fallen's now going to be a rifling IGL. I've not been particularly impressed by his calling. Plus, he's integrating Yekindar alongside Molodoy. I have all these concerns about Molodoy's playstyle that I've seen firsthand through probably 30-odd demos of scouring, looking for playstyle cues, mechanics, all that stuff. Like, can this possibly work? And the way it's played out, yeah, it could work beautifully. Fallen is not Acadian tier rifler. That's impressive to do that transition and do it.
Sure.
Successfully is generous. He's not some fragging IGL, but to do it competently is incredibly hard. I mean, he's got better rating than Techno, and everyone still loves him. So I have to give him that credit on the rifle front. The calling, like stylistically, I do think early on they went with something very simple, and then slowly they've tried to play better and better CS by their own estimation, like what they see as proper structured Counter-Strike. Because initially, Molodoy is just floating. I hear he's still got some communication troubles at that point. He might be up to speed now, but he was getting English lessons. And
that was so weird that they even publicly were like, and Yakinda's going to translate from like, why are you saying that publicly?
I know.
What? Like, that's such a crazy
kind of
thing
make
to
sense,
say.
It's just one of those things where it's like assurance for people like me who immediately have that concern. Like, you took this, not boy, but this young man out of Kazakhstan who's played a little bit on a Russian roster in EU. How's this going to function? And yeah, Yakinda does act as a go-between if needed, I guess. That does make sense. But the fact that he's managed to balance all these parts, and then as I think he's regained control of the team, it's kept on working. So I'm seeing Molodoy more and more involved with other players as he's making plays. He's no longer just solo figuring things out. He's an outstanding player to just leave alone and wait. Like, you just tell him, be in this area. If something happens, kill everyone. He generally will. But he's coming into the play more. He's playing off other players' shoulders. They're doing little timing plays together. This team is coming together beautifully. And as much as some people may not like it, Fallen does deserve a lot of credit for this. It's impressive what he's managed, given this mishmash of cultures, ages, views on CS. And so far, it's turned them into the best version of Furia we may have ever seen. Like, I said this on Monday. This might be Kyousuke's best chance to go and actually go win big events. Like, perhaps it was not completely in vain, his prime being wasted on Furia. There may still be life in this yet.
No, the reason that's actually a smart move as well is if you are going to make this crazy gamble, that essentially what the initial assumption you have to make, like you're saying, is that he's going to get no fucking frags. Fallen. I'll tell you what, load up the rest of the team with like potential star players, though. All these players, in theory, at different times in history, could be the star player of a different team. So that actually does offset. Like, here's the biggest joke of all. This is how you know how rough it's got for certain other teams. Mate, if I'm a big Carrigan fan, I'd take the Furia roster tomorrow for Carrigan over his fucking team he's got in FaZe. Like, he's got a weird, bizarre set of players where some of them don't fit and some of them aren't playing like stars. Like, if he had 4 players like Fallen did, he'd be cooking in these tournaments, mate. So, no, I think that's actually ended up being like a very good swap. The only problem with that swap was just getting your head over the fact of like, wait a minute, why aren't they recruiting people who are Brazilian or speak Portuguese? Once you're over that and you understand their international team, it's actually pretty well put together. It's like a very shrewdly scouted squad as well. Because I also think that to myself, which is like, how the fuck did Furia, which by the way, I suppose he's one of those orgs that like it's really hard to get them to do big signings and stuff like that. So they've had such underwhelming people come in. How are they the ones to get to Molodoy before all of the European teams? Like, that's actually pretty good scouting too. Whoever given that tip off did their job. They did a good job with it.
Yeah, he was a tier 3 AWP. Like, he wasn't tier 2, occasionally flirting with tier 1.5. No, solidly tier 3. Low-level events. Not a particularly impressive team. I mean, at times, the Amcal roster he's playing on, he's just the best rifler and anchor too. They'd just leave him in positions, be it with an AWP or an M4, and he would just lock it down better than any of their other players could. So that was an astute pull. I mean, for people like me who are obsessively watching these games, we knew Molodoy was the truth, mechanically especially. Like, he was insane. But for them to have gone and scouted him, I managed to also convince him to sign specifically for them, because there was interest from other teams. Grix and Molodoy both had interest from a few other sort of slightly smaller, but also potentially better run, better PR'd teams right now, who currently have better reps. But they ended up where they ended up, some for different reasons. But Molodoy, it seems to be just Furia's pitch, I think, has to be what got him over there. Potentially working with Fallen, if he has that sort of respect for him. But credit to them for making that pitch land. So, yeah, great sign.
And I don't blame him for like his initial playoff foibles. Like, he's very quickly being thrust into this position. If anything, he's played too well in group stage games. That's got him to these playoffs where he's failed. Also, on that topic, Sam, this is where the Falcons thing again, sadly, immediately looms back into view. Because the problem is, in theory, Kyousuke can't be the rookie of the year, can he? He only started in the second season. What's that? That's literally what Malbs did last year in G2. Like, the only reason Malbs wasn't rookie of the year is because Donk existed. Otherwise, I think he would have actually won rookie of the year. The reason why Malbs got so high on the top 20 is, he only joined in the second season, but then G2 was in like every playoff, and it was even like, winning tournaments. So if Falcons actually kick into gear and start winning tournaments or going to finals, Kyousuke actually probably could be rookie of the year. I'm with you though. In theory, he shouldn't be. Like, there's other people who've had more tournaments and have had more opportunities. So assuming the Falcons thing doesn't come together, maybe Molodoy can be rookie of the year. I mean, by the way, he got them to the major playoffs, so it's pretty fucking big. He's actually had them in a bunch of playoff scenarios.
I was about to say, I think it's like 3 big tournaments. I'm probably missing one, and he's got them into the playoffs for all of it. PGL Astana, the major, they were in the quarterfinals, and now IEM Cologne. So yes, he may not be like they might have lift the trophy, but that's far better than Fury has done in the past. But two, I mean, I think that there needs to be a little bit of credit to the guy. Like, I'm actually really excited to see where this goes. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to watch Furia. Like I think now I'm like, oh, like during the major, we all thought Furia was, let's be fair, in our pick'ems, we all thought Furia was going to go all the way. Like that was going to be the big battle, right? That was going to happen.
Also, by the way, the other reason why you actually have to, whoever designed this roster, it probably wasn't for him, but whoever designed this roster,
I give Fallen the credit anyway.
Probably the most unexpected part is somehow it's actually resurrected Yuri's game as well. Like, that's the craziest thing. Now, in theory, all the players in the team, except Fallen, actually provide fragging to the roster now. Like, that's another thing. That guy looked like, I always said this for a long time, it was supposed to be Kyousuke and Yuri were the star players of Furia. It's just that the last 2 years or whatever, I mean, everyone goes, fuck Kyousuke in prison, and then they forget that the Yuri guy's he's the fucking warden, mate. He's the one who won't let him out. Like, he's the one who's playing average as fuck, but somehow he's turned his game around. He actually does look more like the player from 4 or 5 years ago now, who was a very promising top-level rifler.
Yeah, you can actually have those pop-offs. That's something we really didn't see, and there were times when we flirted with ideas, like on the outside looking in, like maybe if we put Yuri more aggressive roles, like we took him in like some of these cello opening spots where cello's just missing everything, like maybe reactivate something out of Yuri, simplify his game, get his blood boiling again. We didn't know really what to do, but this seems to have worked. Making him speak English, putting him alongside Yukindar and this young kid who's just a wizard, seems to have worked. But no, on the Rookie of the Year front, it is going to be hard, I think, when we get to the end of it, because Molodoy won't have played a full year, even himself. He won't have made a bunch of grand finals. He won't have, gathered a bunch of titles and accolades, especially when it comes to a HLTV-led vote, that will drive him to keep him over the top of someone who's going to have absolutely absurd fragging numbers for the next 6 months.
And God forbid Falcons win the major or something, mate. Then it doesn't matter what you did if you're Molodoy at that point.
As much as we're critical, as much as we're critical, they do have that sort of potential in them. There's no guarantee Falcons don't win stuff.
Of course. By the way, I do actually think in general, though, one thing I think is actually slept on is because these aren't the biggest names with like the sexiest, like crazy storylines around them. I think people have actually missed that this actual roster mania I thought was pretty good, mate. I actually thought most of these moves made sense and were like decent moves or like the right player to give a chance to. This wasn't one of the ones where I think either nothing happened or it was bad moves. I think generally people upgraded. The real problem is just that I think the reason people are bummed out is they look at like Makazze to NAVI and go, is that going to make us better than Vitality? Well, no. But that problem is, listen, you've got many more problems than not being as good as Vitality right now if you're in fucking NAVI. Like, how about let's get better than Spirit and Mouse first, then we'll worry about the rest,
I think a lot of people said that. I was going to say, like, I think a lot of people felt that that roster mania was like a big bum, but it was because it wasn't the big names. Like, I think teams were making
didn't sign with the team at the time, and by the way, that sort of sucks now, doesn't it? But everyone thought it would be like Simple to Phase, or by the way, that's even the other part. We didn't bother doing it because at this point, it's just been messaged by Blade. It was never going to happen. But like the other reason why the NAVI move didn't seem as sexy is fans want that to either be simple returns to the NAVI or you get a massive name player. Instead, if your thing is like, hey, we're taking someone from our academy squad. Now, sadly, people didn't know the academy squad is really good. People think of that as like, and this is where actually, believe it or not, even though these teams, a lot of them actually became top players themselves, I think the NAVI and the NIP and the Astralis academy squads did the most damage ever to the notion of an academy player, because I do think they took people very cynically to give them just academy rosters while playing as the fifth player in their main real team to like do a cost saving exercise. And they did it way too early in the development of the players, and they didn't give them their proper roles. And in doing so, they made a lot of fans think that anytime you add a player like this, like you take GL, major MVP out, and you put a guy for your academy in, they think, oh, he's going to suck, and you're just doing it because you're going to pay him 5,000 euros and then blame him for all the losses. Whereas actually, this doesn't look like that. This looks like it was a good faith recruitment where you actually think this guy can be as good, well, better than what GL was before, at least at the end, and that you can actually do a positive impact on the team. So these are real academy moves for me.
Yeah, it's sort of the things NIP especially did, sort of erased all the goodwill and all the sort of good things Mouse NXT had managed to do. Everyone's perception of academies was inflated, I think, by them. And then also a few individual players going from academy teams to main rosters and popping off helped. But realistically, when you look at a team like NIP, Young Ninjas, the worst part is they kept promoting those fifths, both now, of course, successful tier 1.5 to tier 1 IGLs. They've also squandered every one of the most talented players they had on their roster. Nilo was fantastic, never played a second for NIP, aside from maybe a standing period that I might forget. I'm not a historian. They had Adam B on that squad, never made anything off it. They really didn't apply themselves to the academy side being a legitimate farming ground, really, for their main roster. Can you imagine if Snappy's now trying to make a team and he has the option of Nilo and Adam B to just promote into his main academy squad rather than having to go for,
no, absolutely.
Well, at the time, like Aros Dosh and Ujerks? Maybe that's just a far more, honestly, on-brand, probably successful signing. So I think there's a number of things that teams do wrong with their academies, and that's led to people overlooking, especially in the search for the next Donk, the search for the next m0NESY, overlooking quality academy development, just in terms of overall well-rounded, strong players. Not necessarily superstars, but just quality pieces.
And on that note, we are done talking, so you can let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll be back soon for another episode.